Australia, land of sunshine, shrimp on the barbie, and giant flightless birds waging war on farmers. Yes, you heard that right. This isn't some tall tale or urban legend. It's a bizarre chapter in history that actually happened. You bet. In 1932, the Australian government declared war on the emu. This wasn't a metaphorical battle against economic woes or political strife. No, this was a literal boots-on-the-ground conflict against a bird. Yes, you read that right. This wasn't some metaphorical battle against inflation or something. The government actually mobilized soldiers to take on these feathered foes. It sounds like something out of a satirical novel, but it was all too real. This was a real live feathered conflict. The emus were relentless and their numbers were staggering. Imagine thousands of these creatures, each one standing nearly 6 feet tall, rampaging through the countryside. And guess what? We lost badly. Despite the soldiers' best efforts, the emus proved to be surprisingly resilient. They were fast, agile, and seemed almost impervious to bullets. The soldiers were disheartened and eventually had to retreat. This wasn't just some silly misunderstanding either. The emus were causing real trouble. They were destroying crops, trampling over farmland, and creating chaos for the farmers who relied on their wheat fields for their livelihood. Picture this, thousands of these 6-foot-tall feathered behemoths, each one capable of flattening a wheat field faster than you can say good day. The farmers were desperate and the emus were relentless. It was an ecological disaster movie come to life, only instead of Godzilla, it was a bird that looked like it got dressed in the dark. The emus were a force to be reckoned with, and they left a trail of destruction in their wake. The Emu War may sound absurd, but it was a stark reminder of the unpredictable challenges that nature can throw our way. Now, you might be wondering how a bird, even a big one, could pose such a threat. Well, emus are tough customers. These birds are not just any ordinary creatures. They are built to survive in the harshest conditions. They're fast, they're strong, and they're surprisingly good at dodging bullets. With their powerful legs, they can reach speeds of up to 30 miles per hour. Imagine trying to shoot a two-legged feather duster sprinting across a field at 30 miles per hour. It's like trying to hit a moving target that never slows down. It's not as easy as it sounds. These birds are incredibly agile and can change direction in a split second, making them even harder to catch. The emus were also incredibly persistent. They didn't just wander through the farmland, they invaded it with a purpose. They descended upon farmland in droves, gobbling up crops and trampling fences. Their sheer numbers made it impossible for farmers to protect their land. It was like a feathery plague had been unleashed upon the Australian outback. The emus moved in large flocks, causing widespread destruction wherever they went. Farmers were at their wits' end. They had never seen anything like it before and were desperate for a solution. They'd tried everything to get rid of the emus, scaring them off, fencing them out. Nothing worked. The emus were relentless and seemed to outsmart every tactic the farmers used. These birds were tougher than a kangaroo steak. Their resilience and adaptability made them formidable opponents in the battle for the farmlands. The emu's ability to thrive in such a harsh environment is a testament to their evolutionary success. They have adapted to survive in conditions that would challenge most other animals. From the scorching heat of the Australian summer to the cold, dry winters, emus have proven that they are one of nature's most resilient creatures. Their social structure and group dynamics also play a crucial role in their survival. By moving in large flocks, they can protect each other and find food more efficiently. The story of the emu invasion is not just about a bird causing trouble. It's a fascinating glimpse into the resilience and adaptability of wildlife in the face of human challenges. As we continue to share our world with these incredible creatures, it's important to understand and respect their place in the ecosystem. The emu empire may have struck back, but it also taught us valuable lessons about coexistence and the power of nature. The emus weren't just a nuisance, they were an economic disaster. These birds were eating the farmers' livelihoods, leaving behind a trail of destruction and despair. The farmers, many of whom were struggling to recover from the Great Depression, were desperate. They needed help, and they needed it fast, so they turned to the government for help. And the government, perhaps caught up in the heat of the moment, or maybe just really wanting to get rid of those pesky emus, decided to call in the big guns, literally. Yes, you read that right. The Australian government, in all its wisdom, decided to send in the army to deal with the emu problem. Armed with Lewis machine guns and enough bravado to put a crocodile to shame, the soldiers set off to do battle with the feathered fiends. The plan, if there was one, seems to have been relatively straightforward. Find the emus, shoot the emus. Simple, right? Well, as anyone who's ever tried to herd cats or, fight a war against birds can tell you, things rarely go according to plan. Section 5, Masters of Evasion, Emu Agility and Camouflage. The emus, you see, had a few tricks up their feathery sleeves. For one thing, they were masters of camouflage. Their brown feathers blended seamlessly with the Australian bush, making them nearly impossible to spot until they were right on top of you. And once they started running, forget about it. Emus can reach speeds of up to 30 miles per hour, and they can zigzag like their lives depend on it. They were faster than the soldiers, more agile, and frankly, probably having a better time. Section 6 shots fired but missed at the emu's triumph. The soldiers quickly discovered that fighting emus was like trying to nail jelly to a tree. These large, flightless birds were not only incredibly fast, but also surprisingly agile. The emus were just too fast, too unpredictable. They could change direction in an instant, making it nearly impossible for the soldiers to get a clear shot. They'd pop up out of nowhere, dodge a hail of bullets like feathered Neo from the Matrix, and then disappear back into the bush. It was as if the emus had a sixth sense for avoiding danger. Newspaper reports from the time are full of accounts of soldiers firing hundreds, even thousands of rounds of ammunition without hitting a single emu. The frustration among the troops was palpable. One particularly embarrassing incident involved a soldier chasing a group of emus across a field, his machine gun blazing, only to trip over a rock and fire the entire magazine into the air. The emus, of course, escaped unscathed, leaving the soldier to nurse his bruised ego. The soldier's efforts were further hampered by the rugged terrain of the Australian outback. The emus seemed to know every nook and cranny, using the landscape to their advantage. Even the military vehicles struggled to keep up. Trucks would get stuck in the mud, and soldiers would have to abandon their pursuit to free them. The emus often traveled in large groups, adding to the chaos. A single emu could be a challenge, but a flock of them was a nightmare. Ambushes were set up, but the emus would somehow sense the danger and avoid the traps. It was as if they were always one step ahead. In the end, the soldiers were forced to admit defeat. The emus had outsmarted and outmaneuvered them at every turn. The Great Emu War had become a legendary tale of nature's triumph over human ingenuity. Section 7. Changing tactics from bullets to bounties. After a few weeks of this embarrassing charade, the Australian government decided to cut their losses. The war was quietly abandoned, and the soldiers, no doubt relieved to be going back to fighting things that didn't have feathers and beaks, were reassigned. The government, however, wasn't quite ready to admit defeat. They tried a few other tactics, including offering bounties for emu carcasses. This at least proved slightly more successful, although it's safe to say the emus still got the better end of the deal. Section 8. The World Laughs Humorous Reflections on a Lost War. The Great Emu War, as it came to be known, was a PR disaster for the Australian government. Newspapers around the world had a field day with the story, portraying the Australians as a bunch of bumbling fools who couldn't even defeat a flock of birds. And you know what? They were right to laugh. It was a ridiculous situation, and the fact that the government took it so seriously only made it funnier. The Great Emu War became a legendary example of human hubris, a reminder that nature is not so easily controlled. Section 9, Emu Victory Dance, a thriving population. The best part? The emus are still around. In fact, they're thriving. They're out there right now, roaming the Australian outback, probably laughing about that time they outsmarted the army. The Great Emu War may have been a humiliating defeat for the Australian military, but it was a resounding victory for emus everywhere. They proved that even the most technologically advanced humans are no match for the sheer tenacity and unpredictability of nature. Section 10, Nature's Resilience, a Lesson Learned. The Great Emu War, for all its absurdity, offers a valuable lesson. It reminds us that nature is a powerful force, not easily tamed or controlled. It also highlights the importance of understanding and respecting the natural world, rather than simply trying to bend it to our will. Perhaps if we can learn to coexist with the emus, to appreciate their unique place in the ecosystem, we can avoid future conflicts of this kind. Or at the very least, we can avoid becoming the laughingstock of the world for trying to fight a war against birds. Section 11. Conclusion. The war that never really ended. The Great Emu War may be over, but the legacy lives on. It's a story that's passed down through generations of Australians, a tale told with a mixture of embarrassment and pride. It's a reminder that even in the face of defeat, there's always a good laugh to be had. And who knows, maybe someday, somewhere in the vast Australian outback, the emus will rise again. Until then, we'll just have to be content with the knowledge that they won the last round, and they won it fair and square, or at least as fair and square as a war against birds can be.